Okay, we're going to talk about cumulative frequency diagrams, first of all. Cumulative frequency diagrams. Okay. Now you remember we used to have tables of data. So I'll give you a table of data now as an example. Okay, so the table shows lengths of cucumbers in centimetres. So cucumbers go from length 21 centimetres to 24 centimetres, 25 to 28, 29 to 32, etc. And their frequencies are given in this column. Now at the moment I've left the cumulative frequency blank. Just to remind you how we calculate the cumulative frequencies, we walk along the frequency line and gather up the frequencies as we go. So we gather up the 3 here, and then we gather up this 7 as well, and that makes a total of 10. Then we walk along a bit further and gather up another 12, so that makes a total of 12 plus 10, which is 22. And then we gather up another 6, so 22 plus 6 is 28. And then the last one is gathering up this 4, and 4 plus 28 is 32. So that gives us the total cumulative frequency of 32. Now that's an important number because if you remember, we can read off the median from this number, and that is done by dividing this number by 2 and then finding out where it is that you go to look at the length. So let's do that now. So change the colour. Well, it's 32. The median is the 32 over 2 value, which is the 16th value. So in actual fact, the 16th value is if we walk down the cumulative frequency, it's going to lie somewhere in here. So we go up there and then we pick the largest length. So we found this 32, which is the 16th value here. And then once we found that 16, keep 16 in our head, we walk down there until we get in between two numbers, where 16 is between two numbers, and it's between 10 and 22. 16 fits in here. So we then walk along and we pick the largest value. So we know that the median lies in the range 29 to 32. Okay, so median lies in the group or the range, group 29 to 32. But what we're going to be talking about is cumulative frequency diagrams. So this is a cumulative frequency table. What we can do is to draw a cumulative frequency diagram from the table. So let's move the figures that we've got up there, and let's think about the cumulative frequency diagram. Okay, so here's a cumulative frequency diagram. At the moment we've just got the axes on here, and the cumulative frequency is always plotted in the upwards direction. So we've got cumulative frequency here, and that goes from 3 up to 32. So we've made enough room for it to go from 3 up to 32. And the lengths go from the smallest value, 21, up to 40. So it starts off here at around about just under 21 and goes up to about 40. So that gives us a chance to then plot our points of the length against the cumulative frequency. So we take our length, each length, and we take the largest value of the length. So this is 24. There it is, 24. We take 24 and we plot it against a cumulative frequency of 3. Okay, so let's just do that in orange. So we've got this 24 here and 3 there. So on our graph, we go along to the length 24, and then we plot that against a value of 3 for the cumulative frequency. And that point there is, so we're looking at 24, 3. That's there. The next value is 28, so it's the highest value of the length in the group, 28, 10. So 28, 10. There's 28 here, and you go up to 10. So we'll put a point about here. 28, 10 is there. Then the next one is 32, 22. So we go along to 32, and we go up to 22 here. So that point is about there. And then the next one, 36, 28. So we go along to 36, and we go up to 28. The last one is 40, 32. So go along to 40, which is here, and then going up till it gets to 32. So that point there would be here. And then can you see that that gives us sort of an S curve, like that? Okay? So you try and join the points up as smoothly as you can to get the cumulative frequency curve. Now, why is that important? Well, first of all, it enables us to calculate a better approximation to the median. If you recall, at the moment, all we know is that the median lies in the group 29 to 32. But can we get something a bit more accurate than that? Well, remember that the median is the 16th value. In other words, it's this 32 divided by 2. So 32 divided by 2 is 16. So this 16th value is here on the cumulative frequency. So what we can do is to draw a straight line from 16 until it goes over and touches the curve. And then we can go straight down, and then that will give us the value of our median. As you can see, our median is 28.5. It's 29. It's halfway between 28 and 30. Look, there's 28, there's 30. It's halfway between. So our median is 29. So let's write that down. Median is 29. So let's just remind ourselves, to find the median, you find the cumulative frequency, divide it by 2, you get to 16. Draw a horizontal line across till you get to the graph, and go down. And the value that you get down here is the median, and in this case it's 29. So that's much more accurate than telling us that it's between 29 and 30. We actually know that it is more likely to be 29. Now we're going to introduce something called the upper quartile range. Now the upper quartile range and the lower quartile range, that's what we're going to talk about now. Let's have a look at the lower quartile range first of all. So the lower quartile range. Basically, instead of looking at halfway up the cumulative frequency, the lower quartile looks a quarter of the way up the cumulative frequency. So the lower quartile range, the lower quartile is 32 over 4. So instead of dividing it by 2, you divide it by 4. And 30 divided by 4, it's the 32 over 4th value, which is, of course, the 32 over 4 is 16 over 2, which is 8. So it's the 8th value So we go along to the 8th value, which is here. We go along until you hit the curve, and then you go down, and then you read off the lower quartile, which is written Q1. So Q1 is the lower quartile. Now the upper quartile, we'll do this one in purple. The upper quartile is written Q3, and Q3 is 3/4. Upper quartile, which is Q3, is the 3/4 times 32. So you take your 32, and instead of dividing it by 2, you multiply it by 3/4. So you multiply it by 3 and you divide it by 4. Now if you take 32 and you multiply it by 3 and divide it by 4, you get 24. So it's the 24th value. So that means we go along to 24 on our graph, and we go along until we hit the curve. You use a rule in the exam, or a ruler in the exam, and then you go straight down and you get to a value here, and that looks about 31.5. So Q3 is 31.5 or 31.5. It's certainly bigger than 33 here. It's closer to 34, about 31.5. And that gives us what's called the upper quartile, or Q3. So we've called the lower quartile Q1, the upper quartile Q3, and another word for the median is Q2. It's halfway between 3 and 1. Okay, so the median is also called Q2. The upper quartile is Q3, the lower quartile is Q1. It shouldn't really say the range here, I beg your pardon, let me just remove that. It's called the upper quartile and the lower quartile. Now I have to explain what the interquartile range is. But before I do that, I'll just add on to the diagram that this is Q3 and this is the median, or Q2. So remember, Q1, lower quartile, Q3, upper quartile. Q2 is the median, or the middle quartile, if you like. The final thing to tell you is the interquartile range. Now the interquartile range is defined to be Q3 minus Q1, and it's always that. So if you're asked to find the interquartile range, you have to calculate Q3, you have to calculate Q1, and then you subtract them. So in this case, Q3 is 31.5, and you take away Q1, which was, where was Q1? Q1 was about 25.5. It's that value there, of course, just there. That's Q1, that's Q3, so it's Q3, take away Q1, and if you take 31.5, take 25.5, you get 6.5. So the interquartile range is 6.5. Okay, let's do another example. I'm going to put up a table of data, and from that table of data we're going to calculate the cumulative frequency. We're going to draw a cumulative frequency graph, and we're going to estimate the median from the graph, and then we're going to find the lower quartile, Q1, and the upper quartile, Q3, and then we're going to find the interquartile range. Okay, here is the table. Okay, this table shows the marks that people got in a test, and the marks go between 0 and 5 marks. 2 people got between 0 and 5, between 6 and 10, 3 people got that, 6 people got between 11 and 15, etc. And what the question is asking us to do is to, part 1, complete the table to show the cumulative frequency. Part 2 is to draw a cumulative frequency graph. Part 3, use the graph to find the A, median, B, lower quartile, and we'll call that Q1, and we'll call the median Q2, and C, the upper quartile. Q3. And the last part of the question is, hence calculate the interquartile range. Okay, so that's the question. So we've got a table, we need to complete it to show the cumulative frequency. Then we've got to draw a graph, then we've got to use the graph to find the median, the lower quartile, the upper quartile, and then hence find the interquartile range. So let's just make that a little bit smaller. I'll put that up there. So there's the question. Right, okay, first bit. Let's complete the table. Okay, so here's our table, and we're going to do the cumulative frequency. So I've just said F is frequency instead of writing the word frequency. I'm going to write CF for cumulative frequency. And to create the cumulative frequencies, we walk along the frequency row and collect the frequencies as we go. So we start off with the 2, and then we add the 3 to make a 5, then we add the 6 to make 11, then we add the 4 to make a 15, and then we add another 4 to make 19, and then we add the last one here to make 20. So that gives us our cumulative frequency. Now we want to draw a cumulative frequency graph. So let's do that. Okay, here's our graph paper. Now, remember, I'm going to do this in blue. Remember that cumulative frequency always gets plotted upwards. Okay, and the marks get plotted this way. And for the marks, we're going to use the upper boundaries, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. Okay? So I've just made our graph paper a bit wider there. So each small square on here, I'm going to make 1 unit along here. So let's just make that a bit longer. So this is the marks. And the marks go from 0 to 30. 0 is the smallest mark, and 30 is the largest. Okay, so I've marked on in units of 5 the marks going along the bottom, and the cumulative frequency goes from 2 up to 20, so I'll mark those in now. Okay, so we've got the cumulative frequency going up from 0 to 20, and we've got the or from 2 to 20, well, starts off at 0, and the marks going from 5 to 30 along this way. So what I want to plot now is the upper boundary of the marks, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, and against each one I'm going to plot those against the cumulative frequencies of 2, 5, 11, 15, 19, 20. So start off with 5, 2. So 5 along the marks, and 2 up is this point here, so we're going to put across there. Let's do that in orange. So 5, 2 is there, and then we're going to do 10, 5. So 10, 5 goes there. And then we're going to do 15, 11. So we go 15, and then we go 11 up, so it's going to be there. 15, 11 goes there. And then 20, 15, there's 20, 15. So we go 20 along the bottom here, and we're going to go up to 15, which is up there. So 20, 15, and then the next one, 25, 19. So we go to 25, and we go up to 19, which is up there. So that's that point there. And then the last one is 30, 20. So 30 is here, and we go up to 20, which is that point there. So 30, 20 is there. Now basically what we do is we have a curve that looks like that. Okay? So that's our curve. We get it, draw it as best as you can, so it goes through all the points that you can. I haven't done a very good job. It's quite difficult on the iPad, believe it or not, to do that. But you can imagine that that curve goes all the way through those points. Okay, I've done a bit of a better job this time. Now, that's that part done. So draw the cumulative frequency graph. Okay, we've done that. We've done the table. Draw the cumulative frequency graph. Now we're going to find the median. So to find the median, you look at this largest value of the CF, 20. And then to find the median, you divide that by 2, which is 10. So let's just write that down. So Q2 is the median, and it is the 20 over 2 value. So it's the 20 over 2 value, whatever that is, which of course 20 over 2 is 20 divided by 2, which is 10. So it's the 10th value. And where is the 10th value? Well, the 10th value is here. Ding, there's 10. So you go along, you draw your graph along there where it says 10, and then down, and then read the value. So let's try and do that, and I'll do that in red. So there's your 10th value, and along you go, and you use a rule, please. Can't do that on the iPad, and then we reach the graph, and as soon as you reach the graph, come down. And that gives you your value of your median, Q2. Which you can see is 14. That point there, Q2, is 14. So that's done the median now. So let's tick that off. Done the median. Now we want to do the lower quartile. So I'm just going to move the graph up a little bit. I'm going to do the lower quartile. So the lower quartile is called Q1. And it is the 20 over 4 value. In other words, instead of dividing it by 2, the median you divided this number by 2. Well, the Q1 you divide this number by 4. And 20 divided by 4 is 5, so it's the 5th value. Okay, so you get your graph, and I'm going to do this in purple, and you find the 5th value. And the 5th value, go up here, there's 5 there, so you put your pen on 5, and you go along until you reach the graph, and as soon as you reach the graph, you come down, and you read off the value here, which is Q1, which is 10. So Q1 is 10. Okay, now we're going to do Q3. We'll do Q3 in green. Q3, And Q3 is the 3/4 times 20th value. And 3/4 of 20 is 60 over 4. So if you're on your calculator or on a piece of paper, 3 times 20, which is 60, 60 divided by 4, that's 15. So it's the 15th value. So we go along up the cumulative frequency till you get to 15, which is here. Draw a straight line using your rule till you get to the curve, and then go down. And you read off the value. And you can see that this is Q3, and that's 20. It's the 15th value, but it's 20. Okay, so the final thing to do is the interquartile range. Now the interquartile range, remember, interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. And this is how I want you to set it out. Q3 is 20, Q1 is 10. If you look here, Q3 we found to be 20, and that's that number there. Q1 is 10, which is that number there. 20 minus 10 is 10, so the interquartile range is 10. Okay, I'm going to do one more example, and I'm going to take it from the 10 ticks sheet that you were given while I was off. So I'm going to show you the question that I'm talking about. It's on the page called Grouped Data, Finding Averages. And here's the question, and these are the what I'd like you to do for this. So part 1 is to calculate the total cumulative frequency . 2 is to calculate, I want you to draw a cumulative frequency graph. Part 3 is to use the graph to estimate the median, lower quartile, upper quartile, and the interquartile range. Interquartile range. Okay, so that's the question. So let's just make that a little bit smaller, so I've got a bit more room. Okay, so let's do part 1 first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this table in again, and I'm going to complete the cumulative frequency part of the table. Okay, so this is part 1. So I'm going to have an extra part of the table here. I'm going to call it cumulative frequency. So let's add up the frequencies as we go through. So 1 and add 3 is 4, and add 15 is 19, add another 19, that's 38, and add another 7, that's 45. Okay, so that's the cumulative frequencies. And remember, it's this number here that's really important, this 45. So I'm going to put that with a nice red box around it, because we're going to use that a lot. So the next thing we need to do is to draw a cumulative frequency graph. So I'm going to bring in some graph paper onto the screen, and I'm going to draw out the basics of the graph. Okay, so here's my graph, and I'm going to plot the height here, and the cumulative frequency always goes up, remember. Always up. And now I'm going to plot the highest parts of the heights, so that's the 4, the 8, the 12, the 16, the 20, against the cumulative frequencies, the 1, 4, 19, 38, 45. So the first one is 4 in height against the cumulative frequency of 1. So I'm going to plot the points again in orange. Cumulative frequency is 1, height is 4. So 4 is here, with a cumulative frequency of 1, which is there. These go in steps of 2, so there's 2 points for each block. So that's 4, 1, which is there. Now the next one is 8, and a cumulative frequency of 4. So 8 is here, 5, 6, 7, 8, and cumulative frequency is 4, which is there. So that point is there. And the next one is 12, 19. So go along to 12, which is here, and then I go up to 19, which is there. So 12, 19. So that's there. And then the next one is 16, 38. And 1638 is there. And then the last one is 745. 2045. Beg your pardon. 2045. So that goes, 2045 is that point there. So those got this sort of S shape, remember, and they look like that. Try and join them up as best as you can. It takes a bit of fiddling sometimes. If you can't get it smooth, use your rule to draw straight lines between each of the points, and that will give you a guidance as to where your curve is. Do that very, very lightly in pencil first. Okay, now we need to use the graph to estimate the median. That's what it says here. So the median, let's do that in back to blue writing. So the median is take this number, 45, and divide it by 2. So it's the 45 over 2 value. And the 45 over 2 is 22.5 value. So it's the 22.5th value. So what we do is we come along to 22.5 in our cumulative frequency. There's 20, 22, 22.5 is along there. And then we draw very carefully along a straight line. Can't do straight lines on this iPad for some reason. And then down, straight line as you can. And that gives us our median. Remember, median is denoted Q2. And so that, now we can read that value off now. It's 10. If that's 10, 11, 12, 13. So the median is 13. Okay, now let's remember we're now doing the lower quartile. Okay, lower quartile. Let's just leave the graph in view there. We'll do the lower quartile in purple. And the lower quartile is called Q1, and it is the, remember we divide it by 4, so it's the 45 over 4 value. And 45 over 4 is 11.25, so it's the 11.25 value. Okay, so then we get on our cumulative frequency and we go up to 11.25. So that's here, and we draw as carefully as we can, horizontal line, and that goes down, and that's our Q1. And our Q1 just very slightly over after 10, so it's about 10.3 or something like that. So can't be very extremely accurate with these graphs. You'll be able to be more accurate because you can use a rule. I can't do that on the iPad. So it's about 10.3. And now we're going to do the upper quartile. And the upper quartile we will do in brown. And remember that the upper quartile is Q3, and it's the 3/4 times the cumulative frequency, which is 45 value. Okay, and 3/4 of 45, if you do that on your calculator, that's the 33.75 value. So we get our cumulative frequency and go up until we get 33.75, which is there, and we go along and as straight as line as we can until we hit the graph, and then we come down. Oop. It's not very straight, but you know what I'm doing here. And it looks at about 15. So this is 15. Okay? And I'm afraid mine's not very accurate, but you get the idea, that's the important thing. Now the last thing we need to do is the interquartile range. And the interquartile range is simple. Once you've found Q3 and Q1, the interquartile range is Q3 minus Q1. And Q3 minus Q1 is 15 minus 10.3, which is 4.7.